In the last episode, Governor accidentally fell into a trap and was rescued by Caesar, one of his former men. Caesar asks Governor if he's been wandering all this time, and Governor nods his head. Caesar looked at Governor with surprise. He seemed to have changed a lot, and then said that their camp was only half a mile away, and that if he went back with them, he had to abide by two things. Firstly, Caesar was in charge of the camp, and secondly, no one was allowed to be a burden. Everyone had to comply and either contribute or be driven away. And so Governor joined Caesar's team. Governor wanted to find a better place for the children, but Lily thought it would be good, and she was a nurse who could help a lot of people. From then on, they would always call on Governor when they went out on a mission to find supplies. One day they found a house, and not knowing what was inside, no one dared to go in. Caesar sent Governor straight away to scout the way. Governor didn't say no. He had to do this job to stay. After entering the room, while others were panicking and struggling to deal with the zombies, only the Governor remained unusually calm and took care of all the zombies. Even Caesar exclaimed that Governor had become a different person, and he was satisfied that Governor had the sense to be a henchman. This camp seems to be having a good time. On this day, Caesar and Lily and their family were having dinner together. Everyone was laughing and joking. Only Governor felt a little awkward. Lily felt safe coming to this camp. Caesar, on the other hand, is always talking about life in the old town. Intentionally or unintentionally, Governor had to find an excuse not to talk about it, and a few minutes after everyone had finished eating, Megan said to Governor that the roof was leaking again. It was fine, but Caesar told Governor to fix it with a direct order. A little later, Caesar found Governor again and took him to the roof of a car to play golf. But of course, his intention was to get Governor to pass him a drink. Governor is a character who can be happy and angry no matter what he does, and seems to take to the role of the little brother quite smoothly. Caesar was very happy with Governor's performance. After all, he used to do this work for him. Caesar even told Governor that if he behaved well, they might share the power, and it was his actions that got him killed. The familiar Governor came back. Caesar was still too young, and the next thing he knew, he was being kicked down. Governor then dragged Caesar into the trap with him, saying that Caesar had forced him to do it. And finally, Caesar was mercilessly thrown in. The next day, Mitch says they found Caesar's remains in the pit this morning, and the residents explode. Mitch goes on to say that it seems Caesar was playing golf and had been drinking heavily when he fell into the pit. Tara is also straightforward in asking what to do with the camp. Pete came forward and said he would take over from now on. The crowd explodes and everyone agrees that they should vote on it, and there is a lot of fuss between the two sides. Pete shouted at them to calm them down. He was a soft-hearted man himself, and when he saw the opposition, he said straight away they needed to stick together. The current arrangements were all temporary. They would have an election in a few days. For now, it was business as usual. Only then did the crowd have nothing to say. The Governor also watched all this quietly. By mid-afternoon, Governor had followed Pete and the others out in search of supplies when Mitch waved at them, having made a new discovery. It turned out to be another group of survivors, less than 10 in number, but with plenty of supplies. Pete thinks they should be allowed to join the group. Mitch is brutal and thinks they don't have enough food and should just kill them and take their supplies. Governor didn't say anything. Pete finally insisted that no one should be hurt and they could find supplies. This time, the operation was called off and the Governor was left thinking. After a while, the only thing they got was an owl. Mitch chattered away, taunting. When they arrived at the camp again, it had been destroyed, not by zombies but by man, and the supplies were naturally all gone. Mitch was cursing. He could have had the supplies, but now they had been given to someone else. While Mitch was searching, an old man was still alive and Mitch pulled out his knife and killed him despite Pete's advice. This is where the difference in human nature comes into play. Governor remained aloof and watched the proceedings. It was clear to him that Mitch was more to his liking. Back at the camp, Governor started packing straight away and told Lily that it wasn't safe here and they had to leave. Lily doesn't understand, but Governor tells her to trust him. Something big is going to happen here sooner or later. Governor thinks that if Pete is the boss, he will one day bury the team because he is indecisive. At night, while everyone was asleep, Governor drove off with a few people, but before they could get very far, Governor stopped the car because there were countless zombies stuck in the mud ahead of them, making the road impassable. They had no choice but to go back to the camp, and since they couldn't leave, Governor had to do something else. Governor comes to Pete's caravan and says he wants to talk to him about something. And then tragedy strikes. Immediately afterwards, Governor knocked on Mitch's room again. Mitch opened the door and froze. Governor had a pistol pointed at him. Wynn came in. Governor didn't kill Mitch immediately. and Mitch thought that because he had killed the old man yesterday, Governor was going to come and kill him. What Mitch didn't expect was for the governor to tell him that he was right yesterday, that they should take the supplies, that he didn't care that he killed the old man, that people like his brother always insist on doing the right thing, not even caring about their safety. Governor said he would take over the camp and he would do everything he could to protect it, and if Mitch joined him, Governor promised he could do whatever he wanted without worrying about whether he was doing the right thing or the wrong thing. As long as it was for the camp, they would do anything. Eventually Mitch accepted Governor's offer and would tell everyone that his brother had died while searching for supplies and that Pete's body had been dumped in the lake. The next day Governor managed to take over the camp. He was a kingpin of a man and soon had the camp in order, and everyone was very impressed with him. Governor told them that the people outside were dangerous and to avoid them and report back if they came across them. One day Megan was playing hide and seek when she came across a zombie and screamed. The governor heard the screams and he was in a panic. Megan gets under the car to avoid the zombies. Tara frantically ran over and grabbed the zombie's leg, but her strength was limited. It was only when Governor arrived in time that the tragedy was prevented. Not only was the child frightened, but Tara was too frightened to return to her senses. It was this incident that made Governor realize that the camp now needed a regular safe ground. Immediately afterwards, Governor drove to an old haunt, and as he slowly moved deeper, he saw Rick and his son by the fence. He then pulled out his pistol and thought about it again, but did not choose to shoot. This time has made him let go of his hatred, and all he wants to do now is protect Megan and the others. The reason for coming to the prison was no longer a personal vendetta. This time Governor wanted to take over the prison and give Megan a place to grow up in peace. Soon after, Governor sees Michonne, the person he hated the most. Michonne and Hershel had just finished with the zombie corpses and were about to return to the prison when Governor caught them. Governor calls on the camp to attack the prison. At first the residents were disgusted. Governor claimed that most of the people living in the prison were thieves and murderers who had blinded him and burned down his town. And at his instigation, they agreed to attack. Immediately afterwards the governor arrives at car where Michonne and Hershel are being held by him. Hershel does not understand what he is up to. The governor straightforwardly told Michonne that he had come to terms with what happened to his daughter, and that she was indeed dead. He didn't want to harm anyone anymore. He just wants the prison. He has to make sure his team survives. Hershel offered to survive together, but Governor said that he and Rick Michonne could never live together, and so it is. With that, Governor was ready to go, settling Lily and Megan next to the river, where the zombies couldn't cross and it should be safe. Governor gives Megan a hug before he leaves. He's going to take down the prison and live a stable life. On the other side of the prison, Glenn is getting better and Maggie is finally relieved. Daryl is also very angry with Rick for getting rid of Carol, but there is no point in arguing now. Carol is gone. The hard part now is to tell Tyrese. Rick and Daryl came to the passage ready to confess the matter. Before they could say anything, Tyrese said with some urgency that he had found something. As they approached, they were also shocked by the sight of someone dissecting a rabbit in the area. Tyrese thinks there's a pervert in the team, who was feeding the zombies with rats at the fence earlier. Is probably the one who killed his girlfriend. Rick naturally knew that the killer was Carol, and apparently it wasn't a man who dissected the rabbit, and he was just about to tell the truth when an explosion came. Those who heard the noise quickly ran out of the prison and came to the door to see that it was Governor who had arrived with a team and even brought a tank. The governor shouted for Rick to come out and negotiate. Rick also responded by telling Governor that he was not in charge of the prison now and that the committee ran the place. Governor didn't care about that and took the hostages out. Maggie and Beth were very worried when they saw their father being arrested. Rick has no choice but to walk out of the prison and negotiate. Daryl told the crowd that they couldn't handle that many people and that if they fired, as they had done in the previous contingency, they would have to get on a bus and escape. The governor directly told Rick that before sunset, everyone from the prison had to leave, or else the hostages would die. Rick pleaded that they had children, old people and some sick people who would not survive outside. Governor said that he was being merciful by not killing them. While the negotiations were in a frenzy, Daryl started handing out weapons and was ready to fight. The kids from the prison pack up and get ready for the bus. Taking Judith with them, Molly comes after them to stop them, suggesting that they should take their pistols as a defense. Rick's side of the negotiation is at a standstill, and even when he offers to live together, he is rebuffed by the governor. Governor is furious and puts a knife to Hershel's neck. Rick said helplessly to Governor's men that this was what they wanted, that he had been a rival to Governor and had even taken in his former companions. They are also involved in their management. If they put down their guns and came in through that door, they were their counselors. And after these men heard Rick's words, somewhat shaken, The prison men did not seem to be what the governor said they were. Governor also listened to Rick's words and caught up and thought, also moved the knife slowly away. But immediately afterwards, the sudden turn of events was so overwhelming that especially Maggie and Beth. A big fight broke out and the two sides exchanged fire. Rick was hit in the thigh as he dodged. Hershel was still alive and lingering on the ground when the governor found him again and cut off his head. Michonne was quick to look for a chance to break free from the ropes. Tara is scared and hides behind the car. She is just a student at the police academy and has never seen anything like this. Governor had just killed Hershel when he looked up and saw Lily standing in front of him holding Megan. Megan is playing by the river, meets a zombie and tragedy strikes. Governor picks up Megan with no expression on his face and decisively pulls out his pistol. Governor is now even more unconcerned, ordered his men to kill them all. The tank crashed straight through the guardrail, his men following behind it. The tank shells are destroying the buildings. The firepower is too much and they now have to get on the bus and leave. Maggie has to go and get Glenn out and she tells Beth to wait for them on the bus. Soon Maggie arrives at the prison to find Glenn, and when they arrive at the bus, they realize that Beth is not there. The woman told Maggie that Beth had gone back to look for her and that she couldn't have left her sister behind. After settling Glenn down, Maggie ran out. Rick, who was hiding in the grass, also pounced on Governor and just landed 2 punches. He was soon pinned to the ground by Governor's reaction because of his injuries. Don't know how many punches were thrown by Governor, but Rick was already a bloody mess. Governor was about to strangle Rick when the long knife pierced his chest. Michonne is here. She picked Rick up and then turned to look at Governor, who was moaning on the ground. She had intended to deliver the final blow, but thought that would have been too cheap. Lily is devastated by the loss of her daughter and it's all because of this man. Go back. Maggie meets Sasha and the others, but by the time they look up, the bus has already left and the zombies are gathering around them. They couldn't care less about anything else. They had to escape now. Tyrese was relieved to see his sister leave and was ready to start retreating, but there was too much fire from the opposite side and he had to lie down in the flower pond. See that they were getting closer and closer and it was Tyrese's time to die. Another shot rang out, and it was the 2 children who fired. Molly fired again, killing the woman. Woman didn't expect to be killed by a child. The zombies have poured in and the rescued Tyrese rushes off with the sisters. Daryl kills invaders and deals with zombies at the same. Getting close to the tank, he throws a grenade into it. Mitch runs out in fear. He lost his tank just like that. When Mitch stood up, Daryl had his bow and arrow pointed at him. No mercy for those who destroyed their home. At this point, Beth, who hadn't found her sister, came running over. There is no time to go back to the others now, and they left the place. Only Rick came to the prison again. Fortunately, Carl is fine, and father and son hugged each other tightly. When Rick and Carl finally found the baby crib, it was empty. Rick was devastated to find out that his daughter was gone and could only hope that someone had taken her with them. Father and son eventually left the prison, and so their home was destroyed and the team scattered.